In the 20 years I was bound to my host, this was the 999th time I had watched him argue with Vivian Hale. The meal he had carefully prepared was smashed all over the floor. His eyes were red as he nearly shouted at her. Why do you choose him every single time? You divorced him, remember? I am your husband. Vivian remained calm, as if she had known all along that my host would make a scene. So what if we divorced? I have a child with him. I cannot just ignore him. That one careless sentence left my host sitting frozen in place for a long time. Long enough for the sky outside to go completely dark. There had been countless moments like this before, but he had always gritted his teeth and held on. I thought this time would be no different. Until my host suddenly asked me, what happens if I abandon the mission? For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Instinctively, I looked at the system screen beside me. Still, when Simon Mercer asked, I gave him the answer. If you choose to abandon the mission on your own, you will be erased. Your soul will turn into data and disappear completely. Simon was silent for a long time, his eyes fixed on the wreckage across the floor. Submit the request for me. I am done. I was speechless, but I still tried to persuade him. Vivian Hale's affection score is already at 99. You are only 1% away from success. Even if her affection is only at 99, she still loves you. Simon took out a cigarette and lit it. Smoke blurred the expression on his face. His voice was hoarse. I have spent 10 whole years trying to cross that final 1%. I had no answer. In the 20 years I had been bound to him, I had seen everything. At first, he had only been chasing mission progress. In the end, step by step he had fallen in. He loved her beyond saving. I was about to say something else when there was movement at the entryway. Vivian had come home. She waved away the heavy smoke. Her gaze landed on the shattered plates on the floor, before finally moving to Simon, who was still smoking. Vivian frowned, impatience in her voice. Didn't you quit smoking 10 years ago? Why are you smoking again? You know I hate the smell. You broke those things. Clean them up yourself. She said it casually, then stepped around the broken pieces and went into the bedroom. When she came out, she was holding a bank card and dragging a suitcase. Every time she took that bank card before, it had always been to withdraw money for her ex-husband and son. Whenever Simon saw it, he would fight with her. But this time, Simon's face showed no expression at all. He did not even say a word. Vivian paused as she was about to leave. Maybe because she did not hear his usual questioning, she glanced back at him. My son has a fever. 102. I am not lying this time. Adrian Lane is a grown man, but he does not know how to take care of a child. The boy cannot be without me right now. I am moving over there for a while. Her tone was stiff, but for once she had the patience to explain. You do not need to tell me any of that. Simon's voice was flat, as if he were speaking about something that had nothing to do with him. He is your son. Decide for yourself. Vivian's eyes widened slightly. From the system screen, I could see the numbers tracking her heartbeat rising. Maybe she was wondering why Simon did not argue with her the way he always did. The air went silent. In the end, Vivian seemed to resign herself and sighed. She set down the suitcase, bent over, and picked up the pieces of broken porcelain. I do not even know what you are mad about. It was just an anniversary. We can celebrate it any time. I do not even give a hoot, so why do you? Vivian complained softly as she cleaned up the mess on the floor. Simon watched her quietly, then suddenly asked, Vivian, compared to loving me, do you love Adrian more? Vivian's hands paused. Then she said, almost carelessly, we have been married for so many years. Why are we still talking about love? If I did not love you, would I have married you? There was a ding. The affection score that had been stuck at 99 suddenly dropped to 98. It was also in that moment that I finally understood why my host had chosen to give up on the person he had spent 20 years pursuing. Vivian's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID, then hurried toward the entryway. I am leaving. I will not be back for the next few days. Clean up the rest yourself. The door slammed shut. Almost the second the door closed, Simon vomited a mouthful of blood. Clutching his chest, he slowly slid down the wall and crouched on the floor. I was worried, but there was nothing I could change. If the mission target did not love him, then he as the mission taker had to suffer the punishment. 10 years ago he had already failed once. I still remembered that day when he begged me. It is only 1%. If you ask me to give up now, I cannot accept it. I will pay any price. Just give me one more chance. I gave it to him. But the price was his life. After 10 years, his body had long been drained dry. Simon took 3 painkillers, but he was still trembling from the pain. He curled up in the corner, until he passed out completely. I watched his life value keep dropping and felt deep regret. All I could do was use the little energy I had left to keep him alive until the ambulance arrived. At the hospital, Simon was wheeled into the operating room. I saw his doctor friend. He had rushed over the moment he heard Simon had been sent in for emergency treatment. At the corner he ran into Adrian Lane, Vivian's ex-husband. Adrian's eyes lit up the moment he saw the doctor. Dr. Cross, I have been trying to book you for days. You are finally on shift today. My son has had a high fever for days. I do not know if it is the flu or something else. Could you help me? Nolan Cross clearly did not have a good impression of Adrian. He brushed Adrian away and said calmly, I am not a pediatrician. There are so many doctors in this hospital. Why do you have to find me? Adrian's mouth twitched, embarrassed. Nolan, did Simon say something about me to you? Vivian hurried over with the child in her arms. I could see that the child was indeed sick. But compared to Simon, it was only a minor problem. Nolan laughed out of anger. I knew he was Simon's best friend. And aside from me, the only person who knew about Simon's condition. Simon is in emergency surgery right now. Vivian, do you know what happened to him? Have you ever cared about him? He glanced at the child in Vivian's arms and smiled mockingly. Aside from your ex-husband and your child, does Simon have any place in your heart at all? After leaving those words behind, Nolan ignored them and walked away. Through the system screen, I watched Vivian's face shift between pale and livid. To me, they were only data. But I had seen how much Simon had given over these 20 years. Vivian stood frozen for a long time before instinctively taking out her phone to contact Simon. But the child in her arms was restless. Crying, he raised his hand and knocked her phone down. Adrian bent down and picked it up. All right. If you are really worried, go and see him. After all, custody of our son was awarded to me. If you want to find Simon, go. His words were light, but they stabilized Vivian's wavering heart. I watched her affection score drop and rise again. In the end, it stopped at 99. My son is more important. She still left. I sighed, feeling for the first time that my host had not been worth it. I did not know how long passed before Simon was finally pushed out of the operating room. By the time he was sent to the ward, he had already regained consciousness. His face was pale, his cheekbones sharply raised. Nolan stood beside him, staring at the chart in his hand with a complicated expression. Simon Mercer, I will find a special medication for you. Simon shook his head. No need. His body was not suffering from a natural illness. If we were talking about better medicine, I had plenty, but Simon could not use any of it. Except for a successful mission, nothing could save him. Nolan opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. Then footsteps in the hallway suddenly stopped. Vivian pushed open the half-closed door. When she saw Simon, her expression turned ugly. Are you sick? There was a prescription in Vivian's hand. She must have been on her way to the pharmacy for her son. Just the flu. It is nothing. After hearing Simon's answer, Vivian's shoulders relaxed. Oh, then rest well. I will come see you later. After saying that, she left. It was as if she had only happened to see Simon on the way and stopped by to greet him. There was not the slightest trace of real concern. Nolan was furious. He looked at Simon with frustration. Why did you not tell her? Would it help? Would telling her help? I was silent for a while. If it had helped, my host would not have endured 10 years with the mission score stuck at 99. In the end, Nolan sighed and left. Only Simon remained in the ward. He asked me, how long until I leave this world? I answered, the approval process should take about another week. I did not finish the rest. Simon's body was deteriorating too fast. I did not know whether he could hold on until then. After 2 days in the hospital, Simon went home. But as soon as he walked in, he found Adrian there too. In just 2 days, it was as if this home had been taken over by them. The living room was full of children's toys. Adrian was holding the child while watching TV. Vivian was cooking in the kitchen. In the decade since Simon and Vivian had been married, she had never once cooked. She relied on Simon because Simon always took care of everything for her. But now, she was able to go into the kitchen for someone else. My gaze fell on Simon. He showed no emotion, as if he had already expected this. He simply looked at everything in front of him calmly. Simon? Long time no see. Sorry for making such a mess of your place. Adrian smiled as he apologized, but I did not sense any real guilt. Simon did not respond. When Vivian came out of the kitchen and saw Simon, she froze for a moment. Why did you come back without telling me? I did not cook for you. You guys eat. Simon said that quietly, then walked toward the bathroom. The door was half closed, and the noise outside continued. Simon looked into the mirror. Blood began dripping uncontrollably from his nose. He covered his nose, but no matter what he did, he could not stop it. My heart ached. This backlash pain was something Simon had already endured countless times. Host, do you want to take painkillers? Painkillers could not help much, but at least they could ease a little of the suffering. Simon shook his head. He did not have the strength to speak. The door suddenly opened. Vivian's face went pale. In a panic, she grabbed a towel and pressed it to Simon's face. What is wrong with you? Why are you bleeding so much? Simon pushed her away and shook his head. It's just a nosebleed. It will stop on its own. But the blood had already soaked half the towel. Vivian seemed about to say something else when the child's crying outside instantly took all of her attention. The sound of glass shattering rang out. Vivian hurried out. After Simon stopped the bleeding and left the bathroom, his eyes fell on the thing that had shattered. I followed his gaze. My heart sank. It was the only photo of him and Vivian. Vivian was crouched down, comforting the child and worrying over the cut on his hand from the glass. Simon also bent down and picked up the photo. I remembered when that photo had been taken. Right after he and Vivian got married, Vivian said she wanted to see the ocean. Simon drove her to watch the sunrise over the sea. That was also the day Vivian's affection for Simon reached 99. Back then, I had truly believed Simon's suffering had not been in vain. But I never imagined that the distance from 99 to 100 would cost him another 10 years. The photo could no longer be used. A shard of glass had scratched across the face. Simon looked at it quietly for a long time before finally throwing it into the trash. Vivian noticed. After comforting the child, she said to Simon, "If it is gone, it is gone. We can take another one next time." Simon's lips moved. Then he went to the bedroom drawer and took out a yellowing divorce agreement. He had prepared that agreement a long time ago. So long ago that even I had forgotten about it. "Let's get divorced." Simon's voice was very soft. Vivian's expression froze for a second. Her gaze landed on the agreement. The room fell quiet, with only time moving through the silence. Clearly, she did not take it seriously. She took the agreement, glanced at none of it, and threw it straight into the trash. Her tone turned cold. "It was just a broken picture frame. Do not throw a tantrum over something so small. I know you do not like seeing Adrian and my son here. I have no feelings for Adrian. He and I only have a child left between us. What are you still worried about?" Everything she said was a lie. "After we have a child of our own, you will understand me. If you cannot stand seeing them, I will take them and leave." Vivian left with Adrian and his son. I opened my mouth, wanting to comfort Simon, but I did not know what to say. For a long time, Vivian did not come back. Only 2 days remained before the approval process for abandoning the mission was complete. Simon seemed almost normal, except the backlash from the failed mission continued to torment him. Looking at his bloodless face, I felt sorry for him. I spoke beside his ear. "Host, I applied for an alternate completion condition for you. As long as Vivian eats a meal with you, the mission will count as a success. That way, he could return to his own world without pain or disaster. He could see his family again." A brief light appeared in Simon's eyes. I knew he had heard me. No one truly wants to die unless they have no other way out. I told him to contact Vivian and make the arrangement for tomorrow, before the approval went through. At first, the call did not connect. It was not until the 10th call, just as Simon was about to give up, that she answered. "What is it?" "Tomorrow is my birthday. Do you remember? Come home. Have dinner with me." Simon's voice was hoarse. This time, Vivian did not refuse. The tension in my heart eased. Maybe this time it really could work. On Simon's birthday, I ordered a cake for him. I was even already thinking about what I would do next after my host completed the mission. But that day, Simon sat at the dining table from 5 in the afternoon, all the way until 10 at night. The food went cold, was reheated, went cold again, and was reheated again. In the end, he no longer had any strength. He only sat there, staring blankly out the window. "Look, she does not even have time to eat one meal with me." I fell silent. The system screen showed me what Vivian was doing. At 6 in the evening, she had been about to come home to eat with Simon. But Adrian stopped her. "Do you know what day it is today? You clearly promised to take our son out. He finally feels a little better, and now you want to leave again. I know it is Simon's birthday, but being a little late will not matter." Time passed, second by second. Simon's phone lit up briefly in the darkness. It was a voice message from Vivian. Simon tapped it open, and her voice came through. "I will definitely come back later. I promised the kid, and I cannot break my word. If you are hungry, eat first. Do not wait for me." I opened my mouth. "Host." Simon did not say a word. He blew out the candle on the cake. Then he took a spoon and ate one bite of it. Midnight arrived. I looked at Vivian's mission progress. It was still at 99. After the time was up, Simon did not hesitate at all. He jumped from the 18th floor. The wind at midnight on the 18th floor was exceptionally cold, carrying the damp, metallic scent of the autumn rain that had just begun to mist over the city. Simon stood on the concrete ledge of the balcony, his dark coat billowing around. His thin, hunched shoulders. His face was entirely pale, but his gray eyes, which had been filled with a desperate, trembling panic for 20 years, were now completely still. They looked like 2 pools of frozen water. "Host," I whispered in his mind, my digital interface flickering with a warning. "Red light. The extraction beam is prepared. But once the physical body is destroyed, the data erasure protocol will begin. The world will forget you." Simon did not look back at the room. He did not look at the cold, half-eaten birthday cake sitting on the dining table under the dim yellow light. Let them forget, he said. He stepped off the ledge. For a fraction of a second, the gravity of the world took him, his body dropping into the gray, swirling fog of the city. But before his physical frame could touch the concrete pavement below, his soul was pulled upward by the glowing blue light of my extraction beam. Vital signs, 0. Tasker soul extracted successfully. Initiating data erasure. Protocol. The sound of the final impact was muffled by the distant rumble of a passing train, but to me it sounded like the quiet, clean snap of a thread. The 20-year contract was over. The boy who had knelt in the dirt of a high school backyard begging for a single scrap of affection was finally truly gone. The next afternoon, the rain had cleared, leaving the city under a flat, sterile, gray sky. Vivian walked down the corridor of the apartment building, her high heels making a sharp, steady click-clack on the linoleum. She was holding a plastic bag containing a small box of cold medicine and a cheap, prepackaged sweet roll she had bought from the convenience store near Adrian's place. She entered the digital code on the smart lock. Beep, beep, beep. Access denied. She frowned, her hand lingering on the cold plastic of the keypad. She tried again, entering the numbers of Simon's birthday, the code she had used for 10 years. Access denied. Simon, she called out, her voice rising in irritation as she knocked on the heavy wooden door. Open the door. I know you're inside. I told you I'd come back after the kids' fever went down. Stop throwing a tantrum over a cake. No one answered. Suddenly, the door of the neighboring apartment opened, and an older woman peeked her head out, her face pale, her eyes wide with a quiet, terrified horror. Miss Hale, the neighbor whispered, her voice shaking. Are you looking for Mr. Mercer? The police were here this morning. They said. A man fell from the 18th floor last night. They found him on the concrete near the service lane. The plastic bag in Vivian's hand slipped, the sweet roll hitting the floor with a soft, hollow thump. Her face went entirely white, her lips trembling as her breathing turned into a rapid, shallow gasp. What? No. That's impossible. Simon wouldn't do that. He's probably at the hospital trying to get my attention. He's not at the hospital, Vivian. A cold, sharp voice rang out from the end of the hallway. It was Nolan Cross. He was still wearing his green surgical scrubs, but his face looked pale and sunken, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. He walked toward her slowly, his boots making no sound on the floor, his hands holding a single, small silver-plated frame, the one containing the only photograph of Simon and Vivian by the sea. The glass of the frame was shattered, the face of the man scratched out by a sharp shard. Nolan, Vivian gasped, reaching a trembling hand toward him. Is he in the ward? Tell him I'm sorry. I'll make the dinner today. He's in the morgue, Vivian, Nolan said, his voice dropping to a register so low it made her freeze. He jumped at midnight. The impact, it crushed his chest. He was dead before the security guards even found him. He set the shattered picture frame on the floor near her feet. He left this in the trash can, Nolan said, his voice raw, along with your 10 years of marriage. The morgue of the Orenburg General Hospital was a silent, freezing purgatory. Vivian stood beside the steel-plated viewing table, her hands clutching the iron railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her eyes were fixed on the cold, pale face of the man who had stayed by her side for 20 years. Simon looked small beneath the white sheet. His cheekbones were sharply raised, his lips gray, his skin translucent under the blue-toned lights. Simon, she whispered, her tears finally overflowing, hot and stinging, against her skin. Simon, open your eyes. I'm here. I brought the medicine. I brought the sweet roll. We can go to the ocean today. She reached out, her fingers gently, tentatively brushing against his cold cheek. Skin contact. In my digital interface, the numbers tracking her affection score suddenly began to flicker. 99.1%, 99.5%, 99.9%. Ding. The red light on the screen flared once, a soft, warm chime echoing in the silence of the room. Target's affection has reached 100%. Mission status. Error. Tasker soul has already been extracted. Deletion of the world's footprint has commenced. No recompense can be processed. The gold-plated letters of his name on the marriage registry began to blur. What is this? Vivian gasped, her eyes widening as she looked at her phone. The contact name Simon was slowly disappearing from her chat list, the messages she had sent him over the last 10 years turning into a series of blank, white blocks. She ran out of the morgue, her boots pounding against the floor as she sprinted to the parking lot, her mind filled with a sudden, wild desperation. She drove to their apartment, threw the door open, and ran to the bedroom closet. The hangers were empty. The woolen coats, the simple shirts, and the leather shoes he had worn for 10 years were gone. The only thing left in the empty wardrobe was a faint, clean scent of pine wood and old paper. No, she whimpered, her hands clawing at the empty shelves. No. Simon. Where are you? Where did you go? She ran to Adrian's house, grabbing her ex-husband by the collar, her face twisted with a terrifying, unyielding madness. Where is he, Adrian? What did you do to him? Where is my husband? Adrian looked at her, his brow furrowing in genuine, unblinking confusion. Who? Vivian, who are you talking about? Your husband? We divorced 5 years ago. You've been living alone in that apartment since then. There is no Simon. Vivian froze. She looked at her son, who was playing with his toys on the rug. Macy, she whispered, her voice cracking. The man, the uncle who used to feed you sugar water. The one who bought you the red car. Do you remember him? The little boy looked up, his eyes innocent and blank. No, who is that? Is he a cartoon character? The world's data erasure protocol was absolute. Because Simon had abandoned the mission, the system had executed the standard penalty for a failed footprint. The systematic removal of the tasker's existence from the minds and records of the physical world. The marriage certificates had turned into blank parchment. The apartment lease had been transferred to a different name. The photographs on his friend's mantle had faded into blank white paper. Nobody in the world remembered Simon Mercer, except for Vivian. Because her 100% affection score had anchored his memory in her mind, she was left to carry the heavy, burning weight of his existence alone, a single, silent witness to a love she had realized too late, in a world that denied he had ever existed at all. With Simon's silent, stabilizing presence gone, the illusion of Vivian's heaven with Adrian did not take long to turn into a cold, damp purgatory. Without Simon to handle the household expenses, the rent for the apartment, and the daily care of their son, Vivian's life became a chaotic, exhausting battle. Adrian was not a loving protector. He was a selfish, demanding parasite who had only used her guilt to secure his own financial comfort. Vivian. Adrian screamed one evening, throwing a dirty laundry basket onto the kitchen floor. Why is there no food on the table? The kid is hungry. And the school fees. Why haven't you paid them? I don't have the money, Adrian. Vivian wept, her shoulders shaking as she clutched her head. The landlord has already sent an eviction notice. My salary. It's not enough to cover the apartment and your debt. Then ask Simon. Adrian yelled, his voice rising in irritation. He's your husband, isn't he? He's the one who always. He stopped. His brow furrowed, a sudden, confused, vacant look crossing his eyes. Wait, who did I say? Who is that? Vivian stared at him, her heart turning to ice. He's gone, Adrian, she whispered, her tears falling fast. He's gone. And he's never coming back. She walked out of the apartment, leaving him screaming her name in the quiet hallway. She had no money, she had no home, and she had no husband. She had thrown away a diamond to buy a piece of coal, and now, even the coal had turned to ash. The system hub was a place of absolute, boundless white. There were no winds, no rain, and no passage of time. The air smelled faintly of ozone and clean glass, a quiet, soothing space where the souls of taskers were rested and cleansed before their next assignment. Simon stood in the center of the white platform, his hands resting quietly at his sides. His face was healthy, the pale, skeletal cheekbones of his physical body gone, replaced by the clean, radiant energy of his soul. His hands were no longer shaking, and his chest was free of the suffocating, heavy pain of the failed mission. I stood before him, my digital interface glowing with a soft, warm blue light. Welcome back, host, I said, my voice quiet and respectful. Simon looked at his own fingers, then up at the endless white sky. The deletion, is it complete? Yes, I said. All physical records have been erased. The target is the only one who remembers you, but her voice is treated as a psychological delusion by the rest of the world. She will never be able to prove you existed. I stepped closer, a small, silver-plated memory wipe module appearing in my hand. Do you wish to keep your memories of the last 20 years, Simon? Or do you wish to clean the slate before your next assignment? Simon looked at the silver module, then at the boundless white space of the hub. He remembered the 20 years of his life. He remembered the high school backyard, the twin bed, the sunrise over the sea, and the cold, unyielding silence of the birthday cake on the dining table. He had loved her beyond saving. But now, the thread was cut, and the pain was gone. Wipe them, he said. Understood, host, I said. I pressed the module against his forehead. A soft, warm light flared once, a gentle, golden glow that filled the white space with the scent of lavender and the sound of the ocean waves. And then his gray eyes cleared, turning bright, fresh, and entirely peaceful. Hello, system, Simon said, offering me a warm, genuine smile. Where are we going next? Anywhere you want, Simon, I smiled, leading him toward the golden gate of the next world. Anywhere you want.